I'm going to call the member for Melbourne.
This bill will make Australians less secure. It will threaten our tech industry and attacks our civil liberties. This now opens up a door into people's private communication with each other. And I'm not just talking about messaging services that might be where you want to keep your messaging confidential, but communications that we all have with our banks, with people that we buy things from over the internet. All of this now is going to be required to be able to be unlocked and looked at by government agencies and by others. And the problem is, once you create a door into what are otherwise encrypted and secure communications, you do not know who's going to be able to access that key. And this is why in other countries, when they've looked at legislation like this, they've said no. Actually, the threat of saying secure communication is no longer secure, they've said the threat of saying that outweighs any arguments that there might be to allow people to go and snoop on that kind of communication. Any security-related arguments, any arguments about law and order. Because it's a very simple proposition. It's a very simple proposition. Once you introduce a weakness and you require by law the introduction of a weakness into otherwise secure communication, you lose control over who can exploit that weakness. You lose control over who can exploit that weakness. It beggars belief that there is somehow some suggestion from the government or from the opposition that it's okay, we're putting in protections about not allowing systemic weaknesses, and I'll come to that in a moment, and I'll come to these hastily circulated amendments that we're being asked to consider immediately and on the fly. I'll come to all of that in a moment. But the basic principle is there's no such thing as requiring companies to be able to create a key to unlock secure communication that doesn't also create a systemic weakness. Of course it does. Once you go down that road and introduce not only a back door but in some instances a front door that the government says can now be opened and can be walked into to look at otherwise secure communication, whether it's between people having secure and confidential messages because you want to keep things private, or whether it's because what you buy online, or whether it's between you and your bank or between financial institutions. Once you say you've got to create that key and allow the door to be opened, anyone can walk through it. And that is a fundamental problem with this bill, and it's why other countries have decided not to go down this road. Because what this bill does is say that government and government agencies can first instance go to technology companies, communication companies, your Telstra, internet providers and the like, and say, we want you to assist by handing over some information about communication between a couple of people. But it does more than that. It doesn't just say we'd like you to be able to assist us and hand that information over. It goes further. That's called a technical assistance request. It goes further and creates things called technical capability requests, where it says, we want you to actively change your software, your product, to include a way in. So if you can't, as the service provider or as the people who run WhatsApp, if you don't actually know what the information is that's passing between two people because they want to keep it secure, or between a bank or between two business entities, if you don't actually know that, which is in many instances the case, the people who run the app may not know what's being said between two people because it's encrypted. It's now saying you've got to change it so that there's a way in, so that you can know what it is and you can find out that information and you can hand it over to us. And it's because of that that this bill has managed to not only raise the ire of people who are concerned about civil liberties, which, you know, for a Liberal government they should just change their name and just junk the word Liberal, because Liberal's completely gone now from anything that they stand for, completely gone. Not only are the civil liberties groups saying, well, hang on, actually this poses a significant threat, not only because people might want to keep communication confidential, but now when people presume, even if you never go on a confidential messaging app in your life, you presume that the information between you and your bank, or between when you do your online shopping, you presume all of that will be kept confidential. Well, now no longer can you presume that, because there is every chance that whoever you're engaging with may have been served with one of these notices and required to include a back door or an open front door into the communication that you're having. Not only is it civil liberties groups saying, hang on, there's a reason other countries haven't done this, it's because this is going to mean, in many respects, the end of privacy. But the tech industry has also said, if Australia is now going to be the place where, when you develop software, you've got to include weaknesses in it, then why will people develop their software in Australia? Why won't they go to the other countries where you don't have to have these inbuilt back doors or front doors that anyone can walk through? Not just government agencies, but that wrongdoers and evildoers can walk through as well, can pick up, because you're opening that door. And they're saying, if Australia has to go down this road, why are people going to continue to develop in Australia? And these are very, very important questions, and ones that, as we deal with updated technology and what it means to keep Australians safe, ones that require the utmost thorough consideration. But what have we got? We've got a bill where people from across the spectrum are lining up saying, hang on, big red flags here, go slowly. No. Well, instead what's happening is, as is usually the case on the last day of sitting in this place, all of a sudden there are these urgent things that can't wait, and legislation that could have been dealt with 6 months ago and gone through the proper process is now being pushed through the parliament. And we're told by the opposition, it's okay, we fixed it. It's okay, we fixed it. Trust us. We've had a closed-door meeting with the government. We've reached a bunch of agreements. Trust us, we've completely fixed it. Well, pardon me, if when we get circulated with 50 pages of amendments about 10 minutes ago and told it's okay, we've all fixed it, people say, no, hang on, I'm not prepared to take you on face value, because we've seen this before. We've seen this before. We were told, oh, don't worry, if we pass legislation in this place allowing agencies to access metadata, there's only going to be a handful of requests. It'll all be all right. Oh, it's okay, we've got some concessions, we fixed it. Well, there's been a significant amount of debate online about this. Dane Pratsky made a good point. Remember this promise regarding the AAB? When the metadata collection laws were passed in 2015, the government said only a limited number of agencies would use them. Now reports suggest that even local councils are using this power to the tune of more than 350,000 requests a year. So, pardon us if we're not prepared to accept on face value this idea that, okay, somehow you fixed it. And they say, oh, well, we fixed it because we've forced the government to accept a definition of systemic weakness. Well, I've got to, in the time that's available to me, I've got to page 5 of these 50 pages. Systemic weakness, as defined in these proposed amendments, means a weakness that affects a whole class of technology, but does not include a weakness that is selectively introduced to one or more target technologies that are connected with a particular person. So you could imagine is basically a group of people under 18, people in Victoria. All of a sudden, now, under this proposal, does that now count not as a systemic weakness? If you say, I'm just introducing a backdoor into your app for a particular group of particular people, it's only them that we're going to spy on? Who knows? Probably. What does it mean, a whole class of technology? Does that mean a particular app? Does it mean a particular app? What if a particular app is only operating in a particular state or with a particular group of people? Are they exempt? Who knows? And it still doesn't deal with the fundamental point that I raised before, which is that once you open that door, you create a systemic weakness. And why are we in this situation? Well, we're in this situation because a few days ago, the Labor Party showed a bit of spine on this, and they were applauded, and rightly so. And Labor Party said, we're not going to be bullied into passing something because the government says there's a rush before Christmas. If the government wants particular laws before Christmas, we'll give them those, but not the broader suite. Well, that didn't last very long. What we're seeing here is a repeat of every time that the Liberals bowl up something that threatens people's security and threatens people's liberty, as long as they put the stamp national security on the front of it, Labor falls into line. And it doesn't matter what threat it has to our industry, what threat it has to our security, what threat it has to our safety, Labor will do it. Justin Warren put it well on Twitter. If you want Australian Labor to pass a law, just scribble national security on it somewhere in crayon. That's pretty much sums up exactly what we've seen here. Or the way Greg Jericho put it, in 10 years the LNP will propose everyone having a tracking microchip inserted in their arm. The ALP will protest and then agree to legislation that has it inserted into people's legs instead, and then they'll say wonderfully how they've improved the bill. That summarises exactly what has happened here as well. We've got these amendments that come in that maintain the fundamental problems with the bill and will now mean Australia will become a place that people will start avoiding when it comes to developing their tech industry here, which is why there are comments, as people have said online. Adam Chalmers said, if the AA bill passes, I just won't be able to work in Australia. I have an ethical obligation to users of my software not to expose their data. Breaking all their crypto security is just a non-starter. Well, that is the situation that people are going to find themselves in. And I think everyone in this parliament, everyone in the country would want to know that we are doing everything we can to keep people safe. And they would want to know that our laws are updated to deal with changes in technology. But they also want to know that the right balance is being struck. And one of the ways that you ensure that is by doing this carefully, not rushing it the week before Parliament is due to rise, when you haven't been bothered to progress it through the Parliament through the usual processes in the last 6 months, not doing it that way, but instead saying we're going to have proper scrutiny and we're going to have the capacity to deal with this. And it's why Mike Cannon-Brookes said online, whatever you feel about the AA bill in Australia, I agree with the Law Council that rushing such complex legislation through in days is reckless. At the least, these unprecedented laws need far more expert scrutiny and debate, and he is dead right. And it may not have dawned on Liberal and Labor, but no one party has a majority in this House. No one party has a majority in the Senate. And why is that? It is because people across the country are saying, we do not agree with you having absolute power and we do not agree with you cooking up backroom deals and then asking the rest of us to just accept on face value that it's all going to be okay. Because we've been down that road before and we have seen what happens. And we are now in a power-sharing parliament. And we are in a power-sharing parliament in large part, because the Australian people want a bit of daylight and sunlight shone on the decisions that are being made in this place. And they want third voices, like the Greens, to hold the others to account, especially when it comes to making sure that people are secure online and that people's liberties and privacy are protected online. And you don't seem to have got the message. And walking in here and saying there's a bunch of amendments, just trust us, it'll all get through, it's all right, we've cooked up this deal, don't worry, it's all going to get through. Well, no. That is not the way you deal with an issue as important as this. So this bill should not be proceeding today. This bill should be put to the proper scrutiny and the proper test to ensure that it doesn't affect our industry, to ensure that it doesn't affect our safety, to ensure that it doesn't affect our liberties. If the government seriously needed additional powers to deal with things over the Christmas break. That had come and asked us 6 months ago. But instead, rushed legislation, a bad Liberal Labor deal that is going to make people online
Members'
less
time has
secure.
expired. The question is,